Welcome to the SkullKing Football Podcast, presented by Fox DFS Firelines. Now, here are your hosts, Justin and Ryan Skullrood.
Hello and welcome to the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Justin Skullrood, your host, and my brother Ryan Skullrood is joining us via phone call. Welcome to week 2 of the NFL season, kicking off with the Jets versus the Bills tonight. We want to get into some news rather quickly. We have a lot on the show. We're going to get into some news. We're going to cover a little bit of some daily fantasy as well, and then we're going to get into our Pick'em and Stick'em game, where we talk about some players that are owned in less than 50% of leagues, who we like, and who we're going to stick the other guy with. What we had kind of introduced as our game in some of the earlier weeks. But starting off right away and getting into the news, Sammy Watkins is listed as questionable for tonight's game against the Jets. And he wants to play per a league source and probably will, but that foot has been aggravating him. Do you feel comfortable, Ryan, playing Sammy Watkins tonight?
No. And honestly, I never felt comfortable drafting him, so I didn't draft him in any league this year, simply because the foot had been an issue all offseason into the preseason. So I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable playing him this week. I don't even feel comfortable maybe even going to Robert Woods, the number 2 wide receiver, because I think they'll still try to use Sammy Watkins. Darrelle Revis got burned last week by AJ Green, but
that's a different animal.
Yeah, that's a different animal. AJ Green's fully healthy, so I kind of shy away from Watkins. If he's one of your only options, then yeah, you got to kind of run him. But no, my wide receivers are deep enough that even if I had him, I could probably go somewhere else. So,
moving on to a little bit of quarterback news, the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell expects Russell Wilson with that ankle injury to be a quote-unquote full go for week 2 against the Rams. Once again, his ankle inadvertently stepped on by Ndamukong Suh during the game. It looked like a really, really bad sprain during the game, but Russell Wilson toughed it out. So indications are it's not as bad maybe as it looked. I know a lot of people are worried about Russell Wilson's ability to evade out of the pocket with his token spin move. Do you feel that against the Rams, who had a horrible night against San Francisco, are going to be able to cause problems for Russell Wilson this week?
I think it's possible. Man, they looked so horrible against the 49ers.
Yes.
They do happen to play the Seahawks well, no matter whether it's here or the last few years in St. Louis. I think they could be a little more focused with this being the first regular season game in LA in so long. Aaron Donald kind of had that freak out moment where he was slamming his helmet, got ejected for just being an idiot. Being
himself.
Well, in the Monday night game. So I think the team will come in with more focus. That being said, it'll be interesting to see how mobile Russell is, but I'd still be willing to use him. I think they'll maybe adjust their game plan so that he can maybe get the ball out quick enough. So we'll see. If he was my starter, I'd still be confident starting him. So
yeah. Moving on, D'Angelo Williams was held out of practice on Wednesday. There's no indications as to why. I know you and I had talked before the show, mentioning that this was more probably a rest day just because of his age, and not any sort of indication of any major setback or major injury. Do you have any concerns with D'Angelo Williams maybe moving forward. He really only has to start one more game after this week, and then is the backup. So,
Well, the guy is my age, which in football years is ancient, 33, 34 years old. So so I think, after seeing 32 touches, the other night, I think it was a Monday night game that they just played. So I think they're holding him out to give him a decent amount of rest going into Sunday's game against Cincinnati. And since, that's a bit of a testy game considering what happened, at the end of the year last year with all the ejections and the hitting the head and all that kind of stuff. So I think they're just resting him so that he is a full go for the game on Sunday.
That's a game I really want to watch just because it was a colossal and epic meltdown last year on behalf of Cincinnati, but I expect that game to be good. Even if it's just good drama. I mean, if the Steelers roll them, which is possible, but the Steelers' defense is not likely to be that great this year. Once again, with Kirk Cousins, the Steelers ran 3 defensive linemen and dropped 8 and dared Kirk Cousins to just dink the ball down the field, which worked because once they got to the end zone, they kicked field goals. So expect the Steelers defense to kind of do that bend a lot and pray to God they don't break kind of defense this year. Garrett Kubiak, moving on to Demaryius Thomas. Garrett Kubiak expects Demaryius Thomas to play on Sunday, playing once again a very, very depleted Indianapolis Colts defense. When they were playing the Detroit Lions this last week, it's like every time you turn to the game, there was a defensive player for the Colts on the ground writhing in pain or getting up from a concussion or a major blow. I don't see this game going for the Colts at all. But Demaryius Thomas, I expect to have a much better game because they're going to be able to throw wherever they want on the field. Now, granted, it's Simeon throwing, but do you have any major concerns with Demaryius Thomas and his game for Sunday?
I still like Demaryius for this game, even if he's a little bit limited, with how just inept the defense is for the Colts. It's going to be at home in Denver, so that helps as well. They're, Indianapolis has kind of had, Denver's number the last few years. I want to say that they are like something like 7-1 in their last 8 meetings against Denver. But I think, I think Demaryius Thomas will be fine. I think this matchup maybe bodes a little better for Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah.
I think Demaryius Thomas will be fine. I think, he's still a decent wide receiver too, for this game. So,
Sam Bradford was getting all the first team reps yesterday. There's a lot of buzz about that a lot of people feel it's still up in the air whether or not he will get the start or he won't. I'm thinking if the Vikings are smart, you have to give the quarterback job to Sam Bradford just because he poses the potential threat of throwing the ball in general. So you make the defense have to play honest and not stack the box quite as much because Sam Bradford can't throw the ball. And this should be a better week for Adrian Peterson and for Stephon Diggs. But once again, I don't expect Sam Bradford to have a great game. But look for his presence to make the pieces around him better. I know, kind of talking about our next guy, Devonta Freeman, you were incredibly high on him preseason. I know we had talked about him. I was nervous about him because I thought there was going to be more of a committee role at the Falcons in week 1 that looks to be the case. Are you nervous with how high you were at the beginning of the season? Are you nervous with the news that came out that he was limited at practice on Wednesday with a quad injury. Are you nervous about that at all?
Well, here's the deal. I wasn't high on Devonta Freeman. Let's be honest here. I thought that he would be fine for PPR leagues, because even if Tevin Coleman for the most part takes a lot of his rushes, I thought that Devonta Freeman was still the pass catching back. He is the more talented pass catching back.
Yeah.
As of this point, it looks like he's questionable. I want to say it looks like it was a quad, a leg thing that kind of is holding him out. Tevin Coleman showed that he can be quite the weapon.
Yeah.
So I can see Freeman cutting into him. It makes me a little bit nervous about Devonta Freeman. I have one league, it's a smaller league, so I've benched him in one league. I think I may have him in a 10-team league or a 12-team league too. I'm kind of back and forth. I have to look at the matchups again. I want to say that they're going at Oakland. So, Oakland's defense. Well, yeah, Oakland's defense, they've got a lot of new young players, so they're still trying to figure out what they're doing, and still trying to gel together. So I'd be okay to kind of, back off Devonta Freeman this week. Kind of keep watching to see how much he's involved in practice. But I think Tevin Coleman could be a solid value coming up this next week. So.
Yeah, one of the things I want to point out is as long as Tevin Coleman is still involved in special teams, then Devonta Freeman will still have a prominent role. I know that there were people that got nervous because though the snaps were split, Coleman had a much better production game. But with Coleman still involved in special teams, until that changes, that should be the indicator that he would become more the starter. But once again, I don't think that's going to happen for a couple of weeks. I think you need a couple of games of proof of better production before you switch from a guy who was the number one or one of the top running backs in fantasy football last year. Moving on to a guy I was really, really excited for at the beginning of the year, but didn't want to touch him because of injuries. Arian Foster sat out of practice yesterday with a hamstring injury. According to the injury report, it sounds more like veteran soreness, so it's minor. But once again, Arian Foster is on an injury report. One, are you surprised? And
No.
Two, what do you do with it?
I think for now, Arian Foster for the most part was drafted as a running back 3 or 4, possible flex. At this point, you keep watching to see how he's doing in practice. Keep watching the next couple of days. If he is active on Sunday morning, so watch for Sunday mornings. Well, I mean, on the website we have the active and inactive lists. So if he is on the active list, he is playing, and he could be, he's a possible running back too. It's a little bit of a tough matchup at New England. So if you have other options, you probably should have other options. Again,
Yes.
I was doing 0 RB and was still getting Arian Foster as like my third running back. So you should be able to have enough other guys with good enough matchups to stay away from there if you need to. If he is like your number 2 running back, I think he'll still be okay even as a flex position.
Yeah, he did have an okay game against Seattle. Now, Seattle defense, if they would have contained on one play, that would have taken out his big chunk of yardage, which would have then made him almost obsolete on the day. But I know a lot of people at even the hint of this went and grabbed Jay Ajayi. I took a look and held off because Jay Ajayi didn't even go to the game to Seattle. I think there's some trouble in the locker room because he may have been upset that he was not named the starter. There's no real story that I've seen to indicate what really went on. I think the Miami Dolphins are doing a very, very good job of handling it in-house, but I am not high on Ajayi yet, even with the news of Arian Foster. So if you've got Foster, I would not be nervous yet. I'd be concerned, but I wouldn't be panicking. Kind of some news that's coming out of the Pacific Northwest. Pete Carroll announced that Thomas Rawls will get the start in Week 2 against the Rams. I believe that Christian Michael will still have a prominent role. I think what you saw in Miami just switched the amount of snaps that Christian Michael and Thomas Rawls got. Christian Michael will still get, I believe, 10 to 12 touches and will be a prominent role within the offense. But Thomas Rawls does get the start. Does this relieve you as much on behalf of those that drafted Thomas Rawls? Are you feeling better about that position, Ryan, or are you still a little nervous? I mean, he's playing the Rams, who did not do well against the run or any part of defense against the 49ers.
Here's the, again, I think the defense in LA is going to be a little bit more focused. I think that Thomas Rawls is the starter. There's even the story here that says that Darrell Bevell has said that Thomas Rawls has always been our starter. I think they're just easing him back in, and once for those guys that drafted him, once they get to week 3 or 4, or even after the bye, I think their bye week is week 5. So once they get after that bye, it'll be all Thomas Rawls. I really think that they're kind of easing him in. So for now, I mean, for those that have matchups now, I think it's a coin flip between the two of them because Chris Michael did show a little more efficiency in his running for 4.4 yards per carry, while Rawls was only around 2.2. Again, I think Rawls is still getting his feet underneath him, especially with the broken ankle last year. So, I think later down the road, it'll be all Thomas Rawls. For right now, it may still stay as a timeshare, though. Yeah.
Kind of some brief ones here before we get to the last big one. Spencer Ware didn't practice yesterday, was suffering from a minor toe issue. I would not be too concerned about that, even though it is in the news. Julio Jones was limited at practice on Wednesday.
He's always limited in practice throughout the week.
You stole my joke. I was basically going to say he will be questionable, quote unquote. He will be questionable every week. It's going to show up, but unless there's any sort of major condition that you would see in a game, don't get nervous. Julio Jones should be your starter.
Julio Jones last year was always on. Every week was on the list. He was, he's probably one of the guys that's the reason that the NFL changed their
injury report.
They're listing injury reports from probable, because probable was supposed to be 75% chance of playing, and over 90% of the people that were listed as probable played last year.
Yeah.
So that's why they're going to the questionable, which is supposed to be a 50-50. So to actually show that, hey, this person actually is questionable whether or not they're going to play. But with the reporting of having to report your actives or inactives a few hours before games, it makes it a little difficult for, say, if you've got a guy that's your like tier 3 guy is playing in the morning and your tier 2 guy is playing either Monday night or even Sunday night. That can make it a little difficult, but for the most part, Julio Jones is going to play.
Rob Gronkowski was at practice on Wednesday. Tell me a little about what your thoughts are on Gronkowski. I know that Martellus Bennett had to stay in on the line to help out in the run game and in blocking because there's a weak line on the right side, and Martellus was there to help out on the block. Did not get a lot of touches. I think he caught the ball maybe once or twice. But do you see Gronkowski, 1, playing this week, 2, having any sort of impact tell me what your thoughts are on Gronkowski this week.
Well, again, luckily for people playing this week, he is he's in the Sunday morning. Well, for us on the West Coast, it's the Sunday morning game, so it's 10 o'clock against Miami. I saw stats on here. His last 3 meetings, I want to say, his last 3 meetings against the Dolphins, excluding last year's Week 17. Which I think that was the 1 week that he sat out last year, kind of prepping him for the playoffs. He's posted lines of 6 catches for 113 yards and a TD, 3 catches for 96 yards and a TD, and 4 catches for 40 yards and a TD. So he kind of owns Miami. So he's trending in the right direction. Again, with the game being in the early slate, he's go ahead and watch for him. I think he may play, and even at less than 100%, I think he's still good to go against Miami's defense.
Yeah. Kind of our last bit of news. No surprise, I don't think to anybody, but ESPN's Bob Holtzman reports that it'll still be a few weeks until Tyler Eifert is able to play. If you've got a tight end spot or a spot on your roster to pick him up, or if you have an IR spot, that's where I would put him. I would right now – I'd be hesitant to take him because you're going to want to grab guys that are getting production and are plug-ins to your starting lineup. But this could be one of those nagging injuries where he may not play, or it may be very, very late. Look for any sort of change to be around that week 6 mark when they start pulling people off of the PUP list.
Yeah, on Yahoo, they don't even have game projections for him until week 5. He may not come back until after the week 9 bye. So
that's terrifying. But that's thankful for a league with. In my indication, or in my case, I'm very, very thankful of a league with an IR spot.
Yes,
but. Moving on to kind of our daily fantasy updates and news and kind of our picks. Ryan, why don't you take the lead and tell us a little bit more about who you like in daily fantasy this week?
All right. Well, getting into the daily fantasy, I do a little bit of work with Vox DFS, kind of helping some of them with their NFL lines, giving them some info and tips, kind of my take, since I'm since I really involved in the season long, and since we live in Washington where we can't play, where we can't legally play DK. I help. I know. Time to move. I help them out with a little bit with just kind of where I think some roles are going to go during the weeks. Helping them with some sleeper picks. So I think this week in developing your lineups, I still like the 0 running back strategy, and where you're because on DK, where they do a lot of their work, DK is full point PPR. So going heavy with the big name wide receivers who are going to get a lot of targets. Odell Beckham Jr., he's $9,500 out of a $50,000 budget, but he is going to have an awesome game because they're playing the New Orleans Saints, who can't stop anything. they can't stop. Their defense is like against anyone is like water through a sieve. Yeah. So Odell's going to have a huge game this week. I see Antonio Brown having a huge game this week. So if you can do the value plays down low, and maybe start Antonio Brown and Odell, that's going to be 2/5 of your budget basically right there. But this is why I like looking at kind of the 0 running back strategy and kind of applying that a little bit to DK and looking to see where you can find value, especially with the running backs lower down. So what I'm looking at is guys under $5,000, which is kind of the cutoff point. That's where all the backup quarterbacks are, and who you can find below there to help you out. And some of the guys I'm looking at, TJ Yeldon, while he didn't have all that great of a week last week, I think this next week bodes a lot better for him. They're going up against San Diego. Chris Ivory, as far as we know, still hasn't practiced and is probably not going to be active for week 2 with his undisclosed hospitalization this last week that we don't know we don't know if, appendicitis or what it was. They haven't said what was going on. So I like TJ Yeldon at San Diego. And at $4,700, he's one of those guys that you could pick up. He catches the ball out of the backfield, could run a little bit, could be a solid player for your DK lineups. Duke Johnson is going up against Baltimore, and one of the reasons I have Duke Johnson on here, he did not get a whole lot of work last week with RG3 as the quarterback. But now with Josh McCown being the quarterback in Cleveland, this is where he got all of his work last year, was when Josh McCown was the quarterback. I see Duke Johnson, he's $4,500 against your budget. So he's going to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield a lot more. I think Josh McCown as the quarterback for Cleveland ups everyone's value.
Yes.
On the Cleveland offense. What did you say? In 8 games last year, he threw for like 2,000 yards, and was it 12?
A little over 2,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, which would have made him a great quarterback.
Yeah, which would put him right around a 14, 15 ranked quarterback in fantasy. So I like that value there. Theo Riddick is at only $4,300. Now, a lot of people would say, "Oh, you're just chasing last week's points with Theo Riddick."
No, you're not.
With Theo Riddick, no, you're not. Yeah, I mean Tennessee was able to bottle up Adrian Peterson a bit, but Theo Riddick is a different animal than Adrian Peterson. He's catching the ball out of the backfield a lot more. Minnesota does not run a high-tempo offense. Detroit does. Detroit's going to be at home. This is their first home game of the year. So Theo Riddick is going to be able to I think he's going to be able to get loose, have a bunch more catches. They're going to be throwing the ball around a lot. And Theo Riddick is that pass-catching back. He's able to run a little bit, as we saw in last week's game against Indianapolis. So, well, it's a little bit tough for defense. It's at home. On the fast AstroTurf. So I like Theo Riddick this week for only $4,300 against Tennessee. And as part of this, finding value, I also like, if we're going to go maybe a different position, go with Victor Cruz. Victor Cruz is going up against, again, New Orleans. So if he's that wide receiver, kind of the wide receiver 3, he's going to be the better value than, say, Sterling Shepard. Sterling Shepard, I couldn't find him on here. I think he's running right around $5,500, somewhere in there. Sterling Shepard, $5,200. So if you want a little bit better value, Victor Cruz is running only $4,300. So he's a lot, he's a bit of a smaller hit against the cap. He showed that he can still get it done a bit. Had a touchdown last week, had a few catches. So Eli's still willing to throw to him. So I think Victor Cruz could be a great value for you this week as well. I wanted to find one just trying to find. No, see, I can't find him on the. I have like a spreadsheet right out open of all of the players from this past week, or of the list on DK, and I'm not finding. Yeah, there's one more. Oh, that's all right. I think So I think those guys are all going to be good values for you. Oh, here's one more. Mike Wallace, if you're wanting an inexpensive wide receiver at $4,700.
Yes,
Going to be I think he seems to have really had that connection with
Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco, sorry. It's early. We're recording this early.
Yeah, recording early in the morning.
So I think Mike Wallace could really be a good value for you. And again, they're going against Cleveland. It's a divisional rivalry. Yeah, he had three catches on 6 targets, so he's getting targeted a bunch, 91 yards and a TD. So Mike Wallace is going to be a great value. And if you want to look a little bit higher, above the 5,000 mark, I'm still looking at Marvin Jones Jr. I've got him in a couple of my leagues. He only had 4 catches last week for, I want to say, 83 yards. Didn't get in the end zone, but 4 catches for 83 yards. He had 4 catches on 10 targets. Sam Bradford is looking his way a lot.
Yeah.
So at only $5,500 for Marvin Jones, that is a huge value that I would, I'm probably going to be rostering him again this week. Again, it's a home game in Detroit. So he's another guy that, if you're looking for lower end value to try to find guys that are really going to be, a great value for you to really get you going, those are the places that I'm looking right now for lineups to help people out. So.
Okay, is that it for DFS?
That's it for our DFS.
Okay, now to the much anticipated, accidentally forgotten game. Last week during week 1, we have our pick 'em and stick 'em. This was the game that we had thrown out there to where we'll pick a quarterbacks, running backs, wide receiver, tight end, and defense that are owned in less than 50% of leagues to try and make it tricky. One of us will pick one. We've got 2 in each position. One will pick one. The other person's stuck with that. Whoever wins gets the honor of winning that week, and we still need a little bit of advice on what the loser has to do. And we kind of want to make it fun. Once again, always looking for feedback on the show. We'll start. What I'll do is I'll start by quickly running through each position. And then we'll kind of go through our picks. At quarterback, we have Dak Prescott versus Washington and Fitzgerald versus Buffalo. Fitzpatrick, sorry. It's early. Running back, Chris Thompson versus Dallas. Sean Drone versus Carolina. Wide receiver, Hogan versus Miami. Cruz versus New Orleans. Tight end, Virgil Green versus Indy, and Jesse James, the outlaw, Jesse James versus Cincinnati. Defenses, we have Philadelphia versus Chicago, and then Detroit at home versus the Titans. Ryan, I'll have you get the first pick, and so you'll get to pick 3, and then you can pick whichever one you want to start with, but who's the matchup that you like first and why you want that individual?
All right. Well, should we just start from the top and I'll take QBs, running backs, and defenses, and you take wide receiver and tight end? Would that be okay with you?
No. I think we should pick one at a time, and then so there's a little bit more.
Whatever. Okay.
You pick first. You pick of the 5. I'll then pick of the remaining 4. You'll pick of the remaining 3, and then I'll get kind of the pick on which one I want to choose on the pulling it up. So, who do you like first within this little game? So,
all right. Well, I'm probably going to have to go. Let's start at running back, and we've got between the 2, Chris Thompson and Chandron. So against Dallas and against Carolina. This may not be, the popular pick. You may be happy that I'm going this direction. I'm going to take Chandron against Carolina.
Oh, that's where I was going.
Chris Thompson had an okay game against Pittsburgh this last week. He is the outlet. I don't trust Matt Jones to stay healthy. So I mean, this is why I thought that these 2 would be comparable when I picked them, when I put them together. Chandron, I think that with Carolina's defense, that Hyde gets bottled up, and I see Chandron getting a lot of the passes, getting the outlet passes and checkdowns, and having a little more fantasy value in that way. So I'm going Chandron running back against Carolina. So
yeah, I was going that way too, just because Carlos Hyde had an amazing week 1. And the Rams had a horrible week 1. But I don't see Carlos Hyde being able to produce even half of what he did in week 1 the rest of the year. He does very, very, very well out of the gate historically over the last couple of years.
And then gets injured.
but then gets injured or becomes irrelevant. And so I'm going to go with the wide receiver position. I'm going Victor Cruz.
Yeah, I knew you were in that direction.
Because I saw the Giants spread the ball around, throw very, very well, and I saw the Saints give up a lot of points to the Raiders. Once again, the Raiders are no one to sneeze at. I have them making the playoffs this year. But I really like Victor Cruz. He showed me a lot, considering it had been 500 plus days since he had played his last game.
Yeah.
And I really like Victor Cruz this week. Hogan against Miami. I'm still not a Garoppolo believer, or a Garoppolo believer. To throw a little joke there.
Here's the thing. I'm okay with Chris Hogan. I had no problems with you taking either guy at this one. So
yeah.
I'm okay with Chris Hogan. I liked what I saw with the deep ball that Garoppolo threw to him. Perfect over the shoulder pass.
Yes.
Still has the speed to beat the defense. So, I'm fine with you taking Cruz in this one.
Okay. Of the three, quarterback, tight end, and defense, which position are you going to go?
I think I am going to go. Ooh. Do I play dirty? I'm going to go tight end.
Oh, I didn't care. I was going to pick that one last. So.
Okay. Because I know how much you love Jesse James.
The passing game, yes. He can't run block whatsoever.
No, but this isn't about run blocking. This is about fantasy points. And
yes.
I think Jesse James could have a pretty good game against Cincinnati. Again, they're going to want to absolutely take it to Cincinnati. So I take Pittsburgh's Jesse James. I want to say that in the last couple of years, or was it just in the last season? I'd have to look it up again. I saw a stat that who was their tight end last year? Miller.
Yep.
That he in the last 2 years that Miller had got against Cincinnati had 10 catches in both those games.
Yeah.
So I think they like exploiting the tight end. So I'm going to take Jesse James against Cincinnati for the tight end position. So that means you get good old Virgil Green against Indianapolis.
That's fine. That's a Gary Kubiak offense that loves the tight end against a defense that has guys that are signing off the streets.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with that. This is where it gets a little interesting.
The quarterback
position. Once again, because their philosophy is you can stream a defense, and I kind of like both defenses in this game. I like Philadelphia's ability in the return game on defense, and as long as they can hold off Alshon Jeffrey or do a better job than Houston did. But I'm also not a believer in the Titans offense, so Detroit shouldn't be in any sort of problem. I'm going to go with Fitzpatrick versus Buffalo. Buffalo has injuries, 2 injuries to their linebacking core, suspension on the defensive line, and once again, they have the Rob Ryan factor, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. I don't mean to dog on Rob Ryan. He's a coach in the NFL. He's a lot smarter than me. But his defenses have struggled over the last 3 years. And the Buffalo defense is no different than that this year. Week 1 was not pretty for them. I don't expect it getting any better. And I expect receivers like Brandon Marshall to have a good game and to rebound very, very well from a lackluster Week 1 performance. So I'm taking Fitzy against Buffalo.
I'll be honest, I was kind of torn on this one. I think Fitzpatrick has the better weapons to use.
You think?
But we'll see what Washington's defense can do against Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, Dallas kind of got little manhandled, and Zeke could not, didn't really get loose at all. I think he had 20 rushes for, I want to say about 51 yards. I mean, he managed to get into the end zone.
Yeah.
But I was kind of torn just because I think Prescott, they could open it up a little bit and let Prescott run around a little. So, I was kind of a coin flip, but I can see where you're going with Fitz. So
yeah.
All right, so I get to choose the defense.
You get to choose defenses.
So Philadelphia against
I shouldn't
Chicago.
have given you my recap on defenses before you picked. But,
oh, that's okay. That's okay. Let me see. I think Philadelphia is at Chicago, and Detroit is at home against Tennessee. Detroit was having some issues, especially against the tight ends. Dwayne Allen had a TD, and Jack Doyle had 2 TDs. So they gave up 3 TDs to the tight end.
So I'm guessing you really like Delaney Walker this week.
I like Delaney Walker, and hey, another DK pick. I forgot to mention him. I think he's a pretty cheap value. So if you can find Delaney Walker on there and manage to work him into your schedule or into your lineup, I think he'll be a great value for you as well. So yeah, I'm kind of iffy on that. Philadelphia's defense can be okay. They are going up against Chicago, which I'm not totally sold on their offense. They've got Alshon Jeffrey. I'm not sold on Jeremy Langford really being a true workhorse, getting the job done. I think I'll have to go with I think I'm still going to go with Detroit. I'm still going to go with Detroit's defense. So.
Took my pick. Actually,
this one was kind of a coin flip for me. That's why I was kind of hemming and hawing. But
here's a weird bit of analysis, and to me, I think also the fact that DeMarco Murray is going to be once again on a turf. I don't like him on grass fields. Just because of his age, and that's kind of one of those wild factors that a lot of people don't think about. But the game is slower on grass than it is on turf. I think DeMarco Murray does better on turf, and so he's going to be in a dome. He's getting to an older guy. I don't mind having Philadelphia. Once again, I like that return game. I would love to see Sproles return one, and I get the easy win on that. So,
all right. So let's kind of recap this on the quarterbacks. I've got Dak Prescott. I got stuck with Dak Prescott, and you picked Fitzpatrick. Well, I mean, let's go with the name. Pick 'em and stick 'em. In wide receivers, you picked.
I picked Victor Cruz and stuck you with Hogan.
Stuck me with Chris Hogan. In running back, I picked Sean Drone and stuck you with Chris Thompson. In tight end, I picked Jesse James and stuck you with Virgil Green. And in defense, I picked Detroit and stuck you with Philadelphia. So.
Yep.
All right.
So, as a quick wrap up, just some final notes. I really like Joe Flacco this week. For those of you who could pick him up on the waiver wire, just a quick last-minute addition.
For those that stream offenses or for those that stream quarterbacks.
I like that. I think it's something very, very easy to do. Talking about streaming quarterbacks, that is. But once again, if you can take Joe Flacco, big arm, throw to Mike Wallace, I think they're good for at least one touchdown matchup this week because the Browns are struggling on defense. But do you have anything else, Ryan?
No, I think that's about it for me. Hopefully next week we'll have our technical issues figured out. So I'll be back on video instead of calling in. So
yeah. And so once again, you have been listening to the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. Once again, brought to you by Vox DFS Firelines. That's VOKDFS.com. That's where you can get your daily fantasy consultations. Don't forget to check out the website for our up-to-date articles. But once again, this has been the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. Good luck in week 2 this season.
All right, we'll talk to you later, guys.